you can create sort of lockdown scenarios where you have Stardust and like a bottomless and maybe even two Solemn set, or even Necroguard in a grave. Like, it's sort of hard for your opponent to come back from that, because if they use any destruction effects, your Stardust is going to negate them, and they can't attack because of your bottomless or Necroguard, and you can just pretty much Solemn their play and negate anything they try to do, and just win over 2 turns with your control. But with sort of the advent of Gale the Storm, it's a lot harder to do that, because since Gale's effect lasts the rest of the game, your Stardust will be at 1250, and even if you negate their attack with Necroguard or something, you can't attack over their Gale with Stardust. So Gale hurts that setup, but I still think Dark Synchro is a pretty good deck, and it'll definitely be played, but probably not to the extent of Lightsworn or Blackwing, or Cat Synchro, which I'm about to get to. But yeah, Dark Synchro is a good deck. I don't think it'll be played that much, but I wouldn't be surprised if a few of them top. Anyway, moving on to Cat Synchro. This has been sort of a, well, explosive deck that has come out in the past, like, month, I guess. X-Saber Airbellum was released in the new starter, and that sort of gave birth to this deck. The main combo, for those of you who don't know, is just a Rescue Cat into Airbellum and a level 3 beast. Then, since Airbellum is the tuner, you can synchro them for level 6, or like, since Rescue Cat's level 4, it creates a lot of other combos, because you can Summon Priest into Rescue Cat, and then synchro with your Summon Priest to get an Arcanite Magician, who's an amazing synchro monster, who kills 2 of their cards. And that can create like really strong board swings, and you can come back from a lot of things. Yeah, and they can also OTK like Blackwings with Summoner Monk and 2 spells. They also have access to Cold Wave, which is really good. Cold Wave is a really good spell if your deck can abuse it, and currently Cat Synchro is the best deck that can abuse it, so that sort of puts them at a level above the other decks in that regard. Yeah, so Cat Synchro actually won the 2 sort of big tournaments that have happened recently, European Championships and Canadian Nationals, and that was sort of surprising, because, I mean, the deck hadn't really proven itself yet, and usually, like, a build will do well, and then people will sort of perfect it, but this deck just came right out of the gates and won these 2 huge tournaments and beat some really good players. So it's been given a lot of attention, and I think a ton of people are running it for Nationals. I think a lot of people are running it sort of, they have a flawed idea about it, because a lot of people are trying to OTK as much as they can, running cards like Gigantes or cards that do like direct damage, I don't know, or trying to maximize their like mind controls, whereas the deck can actually play a lot slower if you want it to, and create an advantage engine with Airbellums and Rescue Cats and Summoner Monks. And I think that version will sort of prove to be more effective, because it doesn't get like blocked. If they block your OTK with the other version, then you're pretty much screwed, because you have no way to come back from that advantage loss. But with this version, you can sort of play a lot slower and take the game that way. And that brings me to sort of another point. Threatening Roar, a lot of people I've seen teching that for Nationals, and running 2 or 3, and that's the Cat Synchro build that won European Championships, ran the 3 Threatening Roars. And I'm personally not a fan of Threatening Roar, if any of you have seen my posts on Duelist Grounds, and it's because that I think like a lot of people are building their decks very poorly right now, and they're trying to maximize their OTK potential with Blackwings or Lightsworn or Cat Synchro or whatever they're running, and Roar is really, really good against those type of decks, because you block their OTK, and then you just come back with your advantage, and you can usually win. And so, I mean, Roar is good in that regard, but I think smart players and the top players know this. They'll build their decks for consistency and not focus as much on the OTKs, so Roar won't hurt them as much, and in that sense, like, Roar just ends up being a -1 for you, and skilled players can sort of just play around it really easily, and it's just not that good, in my opinion, if people are building their decks correctly. But there are a lot of people who aren't building them correctly, in my opinion, so Roar does prove to be a pretty good card, and we'll definitely see a lot of play at Nationals, even if it's not sort of the optimal pick. And Gladiator Beasts, which I've sort of neglected until now, they're really good too. they can set up pretty well versus SynchroCat with chariots, and basically if Gladiator Beast get a really good draw with chariots and solemns and maybe dark bribes if you're running that, then it's very easy to win the game. You can usually just take it and it's pretty easy to win. But Gladiator Beast can also draw really bad and draw a lot of monsters, and lose to sort of the OTKs and bigger plays that Blackwings can play. Like, I don't think Gladiator Beast can sort of swing advantage as much, come back from, like, say, Stardust Dragon. Stardust Dragon is a card that really kills Gladiator Beast, so Dark Synchro and Blackwings, not as much Lightsworn or Cat Synchro, but decks that can summon Stardust really easily have an advantage versus Gladiators. So if you're running Gladiators, you sort of have to run a lot of cards that can deal with Stardust really easily, and also Skill Drain, which a lot of decks are siding, can also really hurt Gladiator Beasts. So if you're running Gladiator Beasts, like, be prepared for a lot of hard matchups. I do think a few will top 16 or top 32, but like it's still going to be a hard day if you're running Gladiator Beasts. So the SynchroCat builds that topped, I want to look at, and I think they're really interesting. They differ in quite a few ways. I'm looking at Charles Easton's SynchroCat build and Vittorio Wiktor's. So Vittorio Wiktor, I think, like I was talking about a few minutes ago, he focused on OTKs a lot, but I like that he also ran Raiko, the Light Laird, because that provides another target for Rescue Cat. You don't want to have dead Rescue Cat, so you add a lot of targets. But it's also like a very consistent card, and even though your opponent might mind control it, like, he runs 3 threatening roars, so that'll pretty much stop them from swinging a huge advantage if they do mind control it. But other than that, it's just a solid 1-for-1. It's a good turn 1 set if you don't set any other cards, because if they mind control, then they're not going to kill anything. Or if you cold wave and set it turn 1, it's pretty good too. It mills some cards for Avarice. I think it was a good pick. I don't know if it was like optimal, but it was still good. The 2 Spy 1 Guard lineup is also good. 3 Cyber Valley, I am not as much a fan as that. But obviously it worked for him, and he ran Book of Moon, which I don't think is a very good card in SynchroCat, because it just doesn't really contribute from what you're trying to do, which is sort of OTK, or even if you're trying to slow play, like Book of Moon is not going to do that much. He didn't main Smashing Ground, which I think would have been a lot better pick, because that allows you to get some shots in with your Airbellum. And yeah, I don't like his deck that much, just because of the 3 threatening roars. I think maybe it was a good metagame call, because in sort of deck's primitive stages, like, a lot of players do run that OTK focus build, but yeah, I think it'll change a lot by the time it sort of comes to US Nationals. And his side deck was also pretty cool. He sided a lot of Dark World cards and Card Destruction and Morphine Jar. It's interesting because if he's playing a Cat Synchro mirror match, when they try to Airbellum him and discard cards from his hand, they might hit a gold or silver, which is a huge advantage swing if they do. But I don't know, it could also lead to you to draw bad. Like, I don't know if I would feel comfortable siding all those cards in, because there's also like 10 cards, and I don't know exactly what he's going to remove. He made 3 Mind Control. I think if other players were smart like him or other players were maining Threatening Roar, then like Mind Control becomes sort of a subpar pick. And 3 Mind Control in general is not like that solid. Like, I don't know if I'd want to play a 10-round tournament. I think Europeans was even bigger than that with 3 Mind Control, because you're just gonna end up drawing bad. But other than that, the deck was pretty solid. I mean, obviously it did well for him, so